Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday edition of the PHLY Eagles Show. We are presented by ButcherBox. ButcherBox is offering our listeners an amazing offer where new users get free meat plus $20 off your first box. Join today using our link, butcherbox.com/PHLY, and use code PHLY to receive this exclusive offer today before time runs out. I am Zach Berman here with Rich Hofmann, filling in today for Bo Wolf. Rich, of course, wears many hats here. This is a fun time of year for me and a lot of people in Philadelphia because you got Eagles going on, Phillies going on, and Sixers going on. I'm able to just I'm able to consume the Sixers very excitedly. I got that pit in my stomach today. You're kind of pulling double duty here. How you holding up right now between you were instrumental in our draft coverage, you're instrumental in our playoff coverage?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. So you obviously, as somebody who pays attention to pretty much every sport imaginable, I was writing about this in the newsletter. What do you think is your favorite sports month of the year? Or kind of, maybe not even the month, just like the time of the year when multiple things are going on? Because I think there are a couple answers, but this is up there, I would say.
Yeah, my answer is October.
Yes,
because you got everything going on. Hopefully, like if the Phillies are in the playoffs, right? Yeah. Sixers and Flyers are starting then. Eagles are in the middle of their season. October's a great month weather-wise, right? You got the brisk. You got the chill, but you're not yet wearing the jacket.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Kids are back in school. Got Halloween, my wife's birthday. I had to say that in case she watches. So definitely October for me.
I think that's right. But I think this time with the NFL draft is kind of my other favorite time of the year. Yeah. And you got the playoffs, you got baseball, you got the draft, which is this 3-day event now, and obviously there's a bunch of lead up. You know, there's the Masters before, there's March Madness, so there's a lot of good stuff going on. Another question for you, because I asked Bo this the other day. How did you hold up? I looked. I didn't watch the whole show. I did the show Thursday and Friday with you for the draft. How did you hold up after a 5-hour Saturday show?
I had a lot of notes about things I could have done better on the show, but it was fun. Whenever I'm sitting with Bo, and then Les joined in for a bit, for more than a bit. I don't want to undersell Les's contribution. Fran Duffy called in. We had a lot to talk about. The thing is that you're kind of rolling. There's not really breaks going on, and so sometimes you say stuff without thinking. Right? You're on a stream of consciousness. Not on a lot of sleep. I like to be focused on the show, but during the draft, I'm getting a lot of text and whatnot. So you're kind of navigating a few different things there. But no, I think I held up fine. I was proud of our draft coverage.
I was too. It's just a marathon. Yes. You did great, but like you just got to keep talking at some point.
Exactly.
And I appreciate all the sickos in there hanging with us, because man, that Friday night show, they were trading back and back and back. Yeah. And we just kept rolling, and Bo obviously was not feeling so well in the other room and getting the second wind over there. But yeah, it was great. I did go back to watch the Jeremiah Trotter pick section. I kind of watched the 30 minutes around that when you had Les and it was you two. And I got to say, I am so in on the Jeremiah Trotter pick. I don't even know if he's going to be good. I hope, because of what you said, the TJ Edwards comp where, you can get a good linebacker in the 5th round sometimes, right? Like maybe he didn't test quite as well, but he's smart. And,
he went to St. Joe's Prep. Of course he's smart.
Of course he's smart, yes. Right? He's been learning how to play the position for a long time. So for a lot of reasons, because he went to my high school, number one. And number two, just the whole legacy thing, like the Jeffrey Lurie, that killed me. Like I
that's
know,
touching. Yeah.
I know a lot of those are, run of the mill. Like the Jalix Hunt Big Pimpin' one was very funny. I think Jalix Hunt was the star of that one. But the shot of, or the video of Lurie just like overcome with emotion was so awesome. So I am so in on this guy.
I agree with you. And we will get to Jeremiah Trotter Jr. today because this is a mailbag episode. And for those who watched yesterday, Bo and I had a little back and forth about this. Bo considered it uncreative to keep going to the mailbag when he's not on the show. And I'm saying he hasn't missed a show since the end of March. I certainly think a month plus is more than enough time to get a mailbag in. And I appreciated all the listeners, viewers who chimed in and said they're on board with the mailbag. And the great thing is I like the mailbag because you give the people what they want. It's what's on their mind. You're answering it directly to them. It's like answering the customer feedback. Additionally,
what's the pizza shop analogy again?
If you have a pizza shop and no one goes there, the pizza shop's not going to stay in business, no matter how good you think your pizza is. I've had this debate, not necessarily with Bo, but with other writers over the years. They say, I don't care what readers think. I say, you don't care what readers think. The readers are your customers, right? And I say, and then I say, if you don't care what, if you don't care what they think, don't put your name on top of the story. You put your name on the top of the story because you want people to see what you write, right? So I very much, I think the audience is essential to what we do. Like without them, we don't have a job. So that's the first part here. The second thing is that you actually, it stimulates conversation that you wouldn't typically have. And some of the questions today are kind of relevant pieces of information, and some of them are real thought-provoking. So we'll get to those. I did want to mention, Rich mentioned the newsletter. Make sure you're subscribing to the newsletter. It's appointment reading for myself and many of my friends every morning. And I liked at the end of today's newsletter, you were speaking to me. Rich has a terrific, subtle sense of humor. And the lines about the playoff game on the West Coast featuring Denver, and then you kind of cross that out, and Sixers and East Coast. This 9 o'clock game is not really sitting well.
No.
I have a 6-year-old son who has Sixers fever. And he is, when I had to break the news to him, it was 9 o'clock. He said, "Yeah, I'll be able to stay up." I said, "Stay? I mean, come on, you haven't made it past 10:30 before, right? Now you're making it to midnight, right?" But it feels like a Monday Night Football game when we were kids.
Yes, exactly. I wrote that today. Like in the early 2000s, Monday Night Football was at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Kind of the Dennis Miller era
Yep.
of Monday Night Football. That was crazy. I can't believe we did that.
Yes.
And it's bad. I don't know. I guess they want, Philly, New York is obviously their best ratings.
Sure. More so than Milwaukee,
series.
Indiana?
Milwaukee, Indiana. They should just put that series. I said this the other night. They should put that series on NBA TV. Who cares? Just run it simultaneously.
Yes.
Nobody cares about that series. Wake us up when the two Milwaukee guys actually are healthy and playing in that series. So yeah, it's a late one, but it did remind me when I was a kid watching Monday Night Football, watching those early Andy Reid teams at 9 o'clock, which was crazy. What were we doing? What time is it now? 8:15.
Yes, yeah,
Much better.
8:15, 8:20, thereabouts. Yeah, I agree with you there. And the great thing is that we had so many questions. We're not even going to be able to get to all of them, but I appreciate the interest. We'll get to quite a few. And I mentioned the Sixers part of the newsletter because Rich knows whenever Bo's not here, I'm always kind of looking for crossover to what's relevant in the zeitgeist of Philly sports fans, and of course, the Sixers right now are the most relevant thing. And so we had a terrific Sixers crossover question from Khalif, who's actually in the chat right now. He's always in the chat, right? He's always watching us. He's a loyal listener, loyal viewer. We appreciate that. And that will be the first question here. It is, number one, who is a young Eagles player that you think is most likely to take a Tyrese Maxey-esque leap into the national conversation this season? So I just want to kind of clarify the parameters of this because I love this question. Every year we kind of talk about who's the breakout player, and we'll certainly talk about that. To me, this isn't the breakout player. This is the player who is, Tyrese Maxey yesterday morning was the sports story. Well, we're not talking about the guy who like the rabid Eagles fans is saying, all right, this guy's going to have a big year. We're talking about the guy who the general everyday sports fan who's living in Des Moines, who's living in Spokane, who's living in Kalamazoo is going to be this is going to be on the forefront of their mind. There's that Twitter account where those guys make a list of things to talk about at the bar every Friday, right?
I
like,
love that.
Yeah, like
that girl that posts that about her dad.
Exactly.
And her friends.
Yes.
Oh.
So I think like who can be at the top of that list. So that's how I interpreted this question. I don't know if you kind of view it differently. I'm like, last year Tyrese Maxey was already a great player, all-star caliber. What he is now is you're talking about like a franchise-esque player.
Yeah.
So that's the way I interpreted this question.
So, and I kind of answered it two different ways, but I think some of what Tyrese does is that he's very charming, right?
Yes.
He's fun to watch. Like, I think fans could easily get behind him because of his crazy work ethic and because of the fact that as he's killing people on the court, he's smiling and grinning at them like a little kid as well. So in that sense, the guy that I would pick is Devonta Smith.
Okay, yes, I like that.
Would be the one where I think even though A.J. Brown is the highest paid receiver in football, I think there is something, we've talked about this before, it's just so aesthetically pleasing about Devonta, watching him run routes, just kind of make corners look like Looney Tunes sometimes with him getting in and out of cuts. And it's, I just kind of dig his whole aesthetic, right? Like where, the way he responds to losses, right? Where he doesn't really sugarcoat it, but he doesn't, he does not try to like downplay, what's going on. Like if something's bad, he's like, we're playing like crap right now, but in a way that feels like under control as well. So that would be one of my answers. The other answer though, just in terms of like a fun play style, somebody who kind of becomes a national star, I would say it's Jalen Carter.
Okay,
And football is different than basketball, Zach, but I'm just thinking of like the plays where Jalen Carter, the reps where he's just jumping off the screen, right? Like the swim move against the Rams. What was the play? I guess it was the Ravens, his first game he played like...
In the preseason.
Yeah, he got in for one play, and then he literally hit the quarterback on that play. Hopefully we see a little bit more of that this year. Hopefully we see it more in November and December. But I do think he has the chance to be, if not like Aaron Donald level, like one of the best defensive players in the league and one of the few defensive players in the league that I think becomes somewhat of a household name.
I like those answers. Those were actually the top two on my list. Devonta Smith is the perfect answer, and he was the thumbnail for today. That was actually convenient. I went to our image database, and I was searching for Sixers-Eagles crossovers. I was hoping for Tyrese Maxey at like an Eagles game. And then I see Devonta ringing the bell. There was Jason Kelce ringing the bell, Devonta ringing the bell, and I'm like, oh, Devonta, it's a perfect shot for this. And because Devonta Smith's already had a 90-plus catch season, right? He's already been a Pro Bowl caliber player. But I think that certainly he has the skill set to be one of the faces of the league. When you talk about elite players at household positions, that's what Devonta Smith is. And I think he's just scratching the surface. Now, I understand there's one ball and it has to be distributed. A.J. Brown's there. Saquon Barkley's there. Dallas Goedert. I get all that. But Devonta, from a volume perspective, I still think he can make plays from like excitement level. His senior year at Alabama, he was that type of player. Like he was special. And we've seen that. I don't even want to say in glimpses. It's been consistent, but he's kind of viewed as 1A. And I think he can be one of the household names of the league. So I'm with you there. I have Jalen Carter second on my list in terms of like performance, maybe not necessarily in terms of people in Kalamazoo were talking about him. Yeah. But in terms of performance, I can see Jalen Carter taking that leap into all-pro caliber. I think he has the talent there. I mentioned Jordan Mailata here. I have Jordan Mailata written down. From a personality perspective, he is impossible not to like. Now, you kind of saw that post-Super Bowl, and he's singing, but if he continues kind of on the trajectory that he's on, you're not just talking about a household name nationally, you're talking about a household name internationally. And then the last one is Saquon Barkley. And I say Saquon because Saquon has an opportunity here to have his Christian McCaffrey season.
Totally.
And that's like he's already popular. But if he turns it, Christian McCaffrey went to a different level when he went from Carolina to San Francisco. And I think that's possible this year going from the Giants to the Eagles.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, because Devonta and AJ are signed up here for a long time, that's great. I feel like one of these years, Devonta's just going to have the crazy season for whatever reason. Like, he's going to be the one who's getting open, and Jalen, maybe a corner slips a couple times, and Jalen gets in a rhythm with him. And, I wonder how that will go, because last year in the middle of the season, it was just, AJ is getting the ball, and he should get the ball because he's just absolutely killing it every week. 125, 150 yards every single week. One of these years, I think Devonta is... Like, what is his highest yards in a season? It's like 1,100?
I think like 1,200, thereabouts, yep.
Like, I think one of these years, he's going to just go for 1,500, 1,600, where he has the crazy year. And I think it's great that the Eagles have two options for that.
Yeah, in 2002, he had 2022, 95 catches for 1,196 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then from a personality perspective, you mentioned the joy that Tyrese Maxey has. And Devonta Smith, look, it's not an apples for apples thing from a personality perspective. He might not be as gregarious, but he certainly is likable in the sense of just how like matter of fact he is, how businesslike he is. And then on the field, I think he's a joy to watch. Like he makes these acrobatic catches. He's not like a bully out there. He's almost like a ballerina out there. And I think that's something that people can get behind.
The catches that he makes in traffic and jumping over guys for a player his size that you would expect a big physical receiver to make. It's just a very unique combination. So you're around these guys more during practice. One of the things that has always been the rap for Maxey is that he works his ass off.
Yes.
And Doc Rivers, I remember saying they called, I don't know why they called it this, but they called it blackout days, where they would tell him, you're not allowed to go to the gym, where, you've just played 40 minutes on a back-to-back, and he wants to show up at 6 a.m. the next day in Philly. And the Sixers medical staff is like, and their performance staff is like, you need to just sit on the couch today and just rest or whatever. Who on the Eagles does that remind you of?
Well, certainly Devonta and AJ are similar in that regard, and Jalen. I mean, Devonta is an early morning person. He became a father this year, and sometimes when people become fathers, they're like, oh man, you have to get up so early. That doesn't change Devonta's schedule. Devonta's a 5 a.m. guy as it is, right? He's kind of speaking my language there. AJ Brown, he was saying the other day at his press conference when the other receivers are out partying on Friday and Saturday night, he's putting in the work. I mean, Jalen Hurts, there was a whole commercial made about him getting there early. But I can tell you, the guy who might be there earliest is Brandon Graham. I mean, Brandon Graham loves being at that facility, loves being in that locker room. He'll put up the Instagram video of him driving into work at like 4:45 a.m. So Brandon Graham has that Detroit work ethic as well.
I think maybe that's a story idea in the future. Just like, I don't associate football as much with kind of the skill development aspects as much as basketball. You work on your handle, you work on your jump shot. Now, for Devonta, I think, what a technician he is as a route runner. That's not true. But, the guy like Brandon Graham, what he's doing to just stay better, I mean, a lot of it is probably just maintenance of his body or whatever. But, it seems like the Eagles, with the three big skill players, we'll see about Saquon. I'm sure he works very hard as well. But with the quarterback and his two favorite receivers, like, it seems like they're okay with the work ethic there. So.
Well said. So we talked about Butcher Box at the top of the show, but I want to keep bringing it up because tomorrow night, you know what my dinner is? It's Butcher Box that's in my freezer. I'm going to put that on the grill. I'm looking forward to it. It came this week, and I was like, this is a really high quality meat in this box here. You can easily find high quality meat and seafood that you can trust. It gives you this peace of mind. It's 100% grass-fed beef, free-range organic chicken, pork-raised, crate-free, and wild-caught seafood. It's humanely raised with no antibiotics or added hormones. It's delivered right to your doorstep. I saw it on my doorstep when I got home 2 days ago. Free shipping always, and it's curated to customized box plans. I went with the all-steak, the all-beef package. A variety of high-quality cuts at an amazing value, exclusive member deals, and there's recipe inspiration, guides, and tips, and hacks. And there's the value, which I'm always looking forward to, right? With the Butcher Box, you're getting the prices and the savings that are hard to find at grocery stores. Butcher Box is offering our listeners an amazing offer where new users get free meat plus $20 off your first box. Join today using our link, butcherbox.com/PHLY, and use code PHLY to receive this exclusive offer today before time runs out. Also, this time of year is allergy season. I see it. My son is sneezing kind of left and right in the morning, and I have to give him his allergy medication. And if I literally have the allergy medication from Rite Aid, because Rite Aid is the place to turn during allergy season. If you're finding sneezy, runny, if you're feeling sneezy, runny, and itchy, it might be pollen allergies, which can make you feel pretty miserable, but there are ways to get relief. Sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. If the pollen count is high, you can stay indoors, but we can't all stay indoors. You might have a baseball game you need to go to. So in that case, you can go to your local Rite Aid. You can try a nasal rinse to help flush out your nasal passages when symptoms are flaring up or when you know the pollen counts are high. There's antihistamines that you can try, or you can even just go right to the pharmacist at your local Rite Aid, and the Rite Aid pharmacist will give you different types of allergy medication, like a decongestant might be necessary. You can always ask the Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season. Visit your local Rite Aid today. Stock up on allergy relief or catch up on your immunizations for RSV, shingles, and more. Walk in or schedule a vaccine appointment at riteaid.com. That was a fun first question. This next question came via email, so it's a little long here, and it's about Red Star players, okay? And basically what's kind of the history behind the terminology, which I can get to, and how he said they took a handful of those guys this year, and how is it different than some of the other normal years. So I'll just kind of run this by you, and then I'll ask you kind of a Red Star type question. Red Star player, according to Howie Roseman, it's a guy who exemplifies what it means to be an Eagle. Great character, captain, testing number, it's intelligence, plays the game the way it should be played, practices the way it should be played. And it's a tradition that actually Joe Douglas, from my understanding, helped bring to Philadelphia. It's something that the Ravens often did when Joe was there, and teams have used a various form of this. But basically, like, your scouts identify a player and they're pounding the table for him, right? And they have this meeting where they kind of put their Red Star up on him, and when they look at the draft board, Jeffrey Lurie always says, "Don't forget, if we're deciding between two guys, there's a Red Star player." So last year, Sidney Brown was a Red Star player. This year, they drafted 5 Red Star players. Howie Roseman did not want to name who they are.
What a draft.
I believe Will Shipley's one of them. Some other players that I think might have been Red Stars in the past would be like Devonta Smith. I think Avonte Maddox might have been a Red Star for them. Do you think this is something that matters? Like, you know, these intangible characteristics? You're looking for just the best players? Or the way Howie Roseman used it this year is they really emphasized this football character, guys who kind of have a chip on their shoulder. Do you think that's a relevant metric to use?
Totally. And I think so much of drafting really in any sport, as much as we talk about their skills and, you know, what can they do on the field, it's like, what type of person are they?
Yep.
And do they have the ability to get better? Do they have the desire to get better? And I think especially in football, compared to some of the other sports, it's hard to play football, Zach. Yep. You got to love playing it. You got to have a desire. And I think the Eagles, in some cases over the years, might have missed on that. Like, I think that was maybe a little bit of the rap on Andre Dillard, right? And look, it's an inexact science. You don't exactly know. The other thing I like about it, though, is that, you know, I've been reading about Bill Belichick recently. Which I know
that sounds fun.
That sounds like something you would do.
Get a little steamy in here,
yeah. I knew you'd like that. But Bill Belichick performing poorly as a GM is what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I think a lot of times
it's a letdown.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It was not in the original Wickersham book. But they were talking about how, like, the scouts would, you know, they might have their Red Star player or whatever, and then Belichick at the end would just say, we're going to take this other guy or whatever. I do think it's an inexact science, but, you know, picking players that your scouts come to a consensus with and kind of, you know, somebody that, you know, they are banging their fist on the table.
You don't want to do it?
They are.
Pep on the table?
No, it's your thing.
Okay.
I just want to let
Does that sound bad with the audio, Julia? Okay.
I do think that probably that probably fosters like a pretty good culture within that building as well. So I think it's important. I would love to know kind of the exact the exact way they come up with who is the Red Star player and who qualifies as that. But like, it's interesting for sure.
I once asked a high-ranking football official, a little flex there. I can't really say the name because it wasn't on the record. But do you miss on the player or the person more? And that was the way I framed it. And he said the person. So that goes to your point, because the player, right? I guess there are different scheme things and players can improve, but ultimately you're gambling as much on the person as you are the player. And when the Eagles gave Jalen Hurts that contract extension last year, that was a big emphasis, is that they were gambling as much on the person as they were the player, or I shouldn't say gambling on, investing in the person as much as the player. This next question leads to something we talked about at the start of the show.
Yeah, be careful pounding the table, by the way. Nick Nurse hurt his finger doing that the other night.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. Yes, yeah. That's better than Chris Finch. Chris Finch, what, he tore his patellar tendon?
Yeah, he's probably going to have to coach in the second row.
Yeah, it's like Hugh Freeze looking down at the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you talked about Trout Jr. at the beginning of the show, and a lot of people are interested in Trout Jr. right now, including Pre-Move Observer, who asked the question, with the obvious love from fans in the organization for Trout Jr., plus Nakobe's injuries and lackluster training camp so far, how many turkeys would you put on Trot 2.0? That's an interesting way of putting it. Trot 2.0, actually making splash plays and pushing Dean for that green dot.
So is he just going against Nakobe Dean?
No, that's a good question. The body type similar to Dean, so you're thinking the Dean role, but no, the way linebackers are these days, it's not as if you necessarily have like the Mike and the Will are often interchangeable, right? So I could certainly see Dean and Trot Jr. being on the field together.
So how do you think they view the linebacker position going into training camp? Is it like Dean is probably the number one guy, and maybe Trot and Devin White are competing? Or
no, so this is the thing. And look, the Trot Jr., I would be excited to. I mean, he's an awesome player to watch, right? I'm not, and I went back and I watched some more film post-draft, and every time you watch film, you get excited about it. Like, just a really good player. Has the instincts, makes plays on the ball, makes plays on the quarterback, right? But you got to remember, he's a 5th-round pick. And Devin White, for maybe as disappointing as last season went, Devin White's been a all-pro caliber player in this league. Devin White has speed that's hard to find at that position. Devin White was the 5th pick in the draft. Trot Jr. was a 5th-round pick. So I do think the Eagles will take it slow with Trot Jr. I don't think it's the type of thing where he's competing for a day one starting job. But Nakobe Dean has missed time because of injuries. Josh Tolentino from the Inquirer, excuse me, told us earlier this year that actually there were issues with the cleats that Nakobe Dean was wearing. So maybe the injuries are behind him here. But these are two players who might be vulnerable to lose playing time if Trot Jr. looks good. I just don't think there's a training camp competition yet for Trot Jr. I think it's more the type of thing where he kind of starts out on special teams, maybe mixes in a few times, and then you kind of see how it looks in October, November.
I don't like that. I want him to play right away.
As do many Eagles fans.
Yeah. So a couple more for you on the linebackers now that I'm thinking about it.
By the way, my answer, though, would be 40 turkeys on that.
40 turkeys?
Yeah.
Did he make splash plays at some point this year?
Yeah, and that he pushes for Dean's role.
Yeah. He would know better than me. So with the linebackers, though, because I think we can all agree that's the weakest position right now on the team, do you think they go to the free agent veteran players, whether that's in the summer or even all the way in training camp like they did this year? Do you see that happening again, or is that kind of contingent on how they perform?
Yeah, I certainly don't think that's something that's in the cards right away here. I think they'll be happy to go into training camp right now with Nakobe Dean, Devin White, Oren Burks, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Ben Van Sumeren at linebacker. And you can kind of figure it out from there. Last year they brought in Zach Cunningham and Miles Jack early August. and Zach Cunningham ended up winning a job. I don't think this is one where they're looking for imminent relief. I think this is one where they are simply trying to, or they have their guys. They'll see how they look, and it's a position that you can usually find on the street in August.
It does seem like, despite the fact that their linebackers were a huge weakness last year, they're not really changing the philosophy up, right? Where they didn't make a huge free agent signing. You know, Devin White.
Yeah, I think they would. I mean, Devin White's their biggest investment in a free agent linebacker since Nigel Bradham.
Okay. And then they wait till the 5th round to get Trot Jr. They could have probably made a pick in the 3rd round, right? And got somebody else. But it seems like they are going about it the same way. One other thing too, because I just had that San Francisco game. That's just like nightmares running through my head, and just watching the linebackers be put through the blender in that game. Do you think there is a reason to believe that with the coaching, Vic Fangio over Matt Patricia, and also strengthening the other areas, I'm specifically talking about safety and your cornerbacks, that there is like reason to believe that even regardless of what you are getting from your linebackers, the other areas, if they are better, can kind of make that less of a problem area?
It's certainly plausible, right? The reason I hesitated there is anything to do with this new coaching staff or the coaching staff changes. It's still kind of wait and see mode, right? Like I don't quite know what this scheme's going to be. But when you have Vic Fangio, the expectation is that you're more confident, that you're better. As Bo put it, you're raising the floor. You're raising the floor of this defense, and you should get this baseline that is acceptable. So that would be my guess. Now, it's a players' league. It's ultimately how well the players play. But I'm not as dismissive on Devin White based on last year. I think there were factors. Now, you can always rationalize anything, right? But I think there are factors that could rationalize that performance last year.
Okay.
Before we get to the next question, Joey, was there a super chat that we had to hit on? Or not, I shouldn't say had to, that we want to hit on. Any veteran guards that are trade candidates? Good question here. I wouldn't necessarily say trade candidates. There's still veteran guards on the market. If they wanted to sign a Dalton Risner, then they could do that.
You like Risner?
I mean, he's experienced. He's played meaningful football in this league. I think they're going to look at what they have with Steen. There was the report that came out yesterday, I believe, from Jeff Mosher, that the Eagles are going to consider Becton at guard. Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds. I will talk to Nick Sirianni tomorrow, and I'll find out more about their plans with Becton. I'm intrigued by that. But I think as of right now, I mean, I consider right guard to be their biggest need, for sure. But they're going to see what they have in Steen. They like Matt Hennessy in that building. I mean, they think Hennessy's a player. Hennessy's more of a center at this point. Then you have Trevor Keegan. Trevor Keegan. I keep calling him Travis. My God.
How dare you?
Yeah. I got a buddy from college, Travis Webb. Let's shout out to Travis.
The 75th guy on the roster, not getting his name right.
No, Trevor, who...
they just
you'll hear some more. You'll hear more from Trevor on this show, or hear more about Trevor on this show soon.
I was about to say, I was like, man, I insulted the guy. Is he coming on? Is he about to walk into the room right now?
Trevor, come on in, right?
No.
But yeah, so they have some options there, but I do think Steen is the front runner at the moment. The next question here, this is a natural follow up to the Trot Jr. one, which is, do you think the Eagles will actually play their rookies this year? The past 2 years, rookies have been held back for the most part. This is from NFL Irish. We appreciate you following from Ireland.
So that's my big question with the two corners right now. Because on draft night, on day 2, my first thought was, wow, they went from not having enough guys in the secondary to, oh man, after they signed Chauncey, after they're bringing Slay back, Sidney Brown will come back at some point this season. They got a lot of guys. So do you think, let me put it this way, do you think DeJean and Mitchell are both among the 5 defensive backs week 1?
Great question. Mitchell, yes. DeJean, I think he's among the 6 defensive backs week 1.
That's not 5.
I think he'll push to be the slot. I think he can play third safety for them, be your top outside backup corner, although Ringo will push there. So I'm going to say no.
Does he have inside experience?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a chess piece. I mean, people say movable chess piece, right? Bo kind of took umbrage to that the other day, like all chess pieces move. He's a chess piece. He's someone he's your queen. You're using him. You're using him as your deep safety. Is that a bad thing to say? A queen on the chessboard. Okay, how about that? He's able to go, all the different directions on the chessboard, right? So yeah, I watched Cooper DeJean film this week, and there were wow plays in there where you're like, how was this guy available at 40 or whatever, right? So, I mean, he has experience in the slot. He has experience at safety. He has experience on the outside. Really, the only thing he hasn't done much is play press man coverage. And there's a big deal made about press man coverage, but there is film of him like in people's faces, right? So I can. What's so funny? Is the chat having fun with
okay. Cooper to Queen. I like that. Yeah.
Okay. Met the Queen on the chessboard, which was a compliment.
Well, it seems like the main thing he was doing though was the Fran Duffy film he showed was similar to Quinion Mitchell, right? Where he's playing off and he's kind of using his eyes to react. So yeah, he's the guy I'm curious about, right? Because look, they traded up for him. They viewed him as a first round pick. You have to find a way to get him on the field in the first year. Like if you think he is that caliber of player, do you think they could use him? Like, is he sometimes a sub package guy too? Where
absolutely.
Where you can use him as a linebacker almost on an obvious passing down.
Yeah, I think the great thing about Cooper DeJean is that it's a cliche to say he's a football player, but he's a football player. Like you can put him in a role. And I think given his athleticism, given his instincts for the ball, he can find ways to contribute in that role. So absolutely. I look at Cooper DeJean as someone who can be a contributor in multiple spots for the Eagles.
He's my most intriguing guy because I just think Mitchell's going to plug and play. He's going to be opposite Slay. Obviously, I can't wait to watch that guy play, but I think there's less mystery there, right? Where you have Vic Fangio, who's supposed to be able to get more out of these guys, supposed to, as Bo's not going to like it, play some positionless football.
Yeah. Have you heard about the Miami Heat post LeBron James?
I have.
I'm sorry.
No, I've heard of it.
During LeBron James' second year. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Shane Battier, 1 to 5 switching. Yeah. Exactly.
So my answer to this question is you will see the rookies play this year. I think Quinion Mitchell's going to be a day one starter for the Eagles. I think DeJean's going to have a role in defense. I don't expect Alex Hunt to play this year or play much meaningful defensive snaps. Many meaningful defensive snaps. Will Shipley, my expectation is he becomes the second running back. I think he pushes Gainwell there. I think Trot Jr. can push for playing time. We discussed that. And then the receivers, I think Anaya Smith can push to be the number 3 wide receiver. And then the offensive linemen, I consider more depth guys at this point. But I think there's more of a pathway to playing time this year than there's been in past years.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have those mid-round picks at positions where you're either not deep or there's like an obvious backup role in Will Shipley's case, I would expect those guys to at least push to get on the field.
Before we get to the next question here, I do want to talk about game time because, look, there's a huge game here tonight. I wish the game was at 7:30. Unfortunately, it's at 9 o'clock. But I know a big deal. Anthony talked about it on a show today. He had David Edelman on. You want Sixers fans in the building. And so if you're an Eagles fan watching this, I imagine you might be a Sixers fan too. You want to go to this game. The place to turn is Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. So you're sitting at your home at 8:35 at night. You just put your kids down to bed, and you're like, you know what? Let's see if there's a last-minute flash deal. The place to turn, Game Time, because they have flash-minute deals on last-minute tickets to the lowest price guarantee. They have zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets, views from all seats in the venue. So maybe there's a seat in a section you're not so familiar with. You just pull up the app. You can see, oh, look at that. I can see Tyrese Maxey hit a logo 3 from this seat perfectly. And lowest price guarantee with event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. I talk about Game Time every day, not just because I'm reading an ad, it's because I use Game Time. I've literally walked into that building with with a ticket, or tickets, I should say, purchased on Game Time, and I'm going to continue to use it. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And then you're watching at home, right? And you want to hang out, and there's different things you can drink. Among the things you can drink, it's Olipop. Because you're washing down your wings or your pizza or your cheesesteak with Olipop. Olipop is the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste. I was in our studio office here before. Julia is holding up the Olipop right there. They were eating hoagies over here, and they were saying, "Who wants Olipop?" And I heard that can open, and I said, that's a familiar sound. That's Julia opening up the Olipop. Olipop is available online and in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including the most recent launch at all Wawa stores. The two flavors debuting in Wawa are classic root beer and strawberry vanilla. Which flavor is that, Julia? Cherry Cola, which you're not getting at Wawa, but you can get it at so many retailers and online that sell Olipop. And where would you turn for that? You just use the code PHLY for 20% off your next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, so you can get that Cherry Cola, not to subscription orders. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com and at Amazon. It's available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff. So we're going to jump around here because actually you brought up a few points in your previous answer that I thought were really good, and I think they're relevant to what we're talking about. So, Joy, I will give you the number, and that will help us. The first one is this, and this is number 6. How many turkeys would you put on James Bradberry being on the 53-man roster week 1? And that's from Wayne Yetzky. Just to kind of lay this out, James Bradberry has not been released by the Eagles. There's no financial incentive for them to release him now. They can release him post June 1st and spread that cap hit over. There'd be $4.3 million in dead money if they did it post June 1st. But I said all along they would kind of bring him back for the summer or for the spring, let Vic Fangio see him. But my personal view on this, and I'm curious what you think, after adding 2 corners in the draft, I'd be surprised if Bradberry's here in 2024.
10, 15?
Yeah.
It's low, right? When you take 2 corners, I think that, Howie said at the combine, basically, he's on the team right now. We're thinking about bringing him back, but their actions say that they viewed that position as a need. And to load up with 2 corners, too, I would want to keep Keely Ringo for his kind of future chances of being a better corner than James Bradberry. James Bradberry would, if he's still on this roster, as a kind of a win-now player, and if he's not starting, then what is he here for? Yeah,
Bradberry does have a history of on-again, off-again years, but I don't know if the Eagles take that chance now, and I do think the Eagles want to get faster on defense this year, and certainly Mitchell and DeGene help you with that. Now, I've told the story.
Young legs, can't wait.
Young legs. I've told the story on the show before that there was a player who once I was told the Eagles were cutting him. I think the player kind of thought he was going to get cut. I'm actually very confident that the player thought he was going to get cut because I was about to report the news. And I go and do what a reporter's supposed to do, is that you just want to run it by some people in the building. And I was kind of told, hey, I'm not sure he's going to get cut. He might get traded. And I was like, you're not trading this guy. Everyone in the league knows you're going to get cut. Everyone knows he's going to get cut. They're like, what? I'm just saying, don't report he's going to get cut because that's not true. And then I'm like, well, I'm not trying to carry the team's water here. So I kind of held on it. And then sure enough, the team traded him, right? And this is a way of saying how he kind of can find ways to get value. I'd be surprised if they can trade him. The Giants tried doing that 2 years ago. It didn't work. They cut him. So we will see what happens there. The other question that speaks to what you were just talking about before, this is number 12, Julia. It's, can we revisit some sliding door decisions from earlier in the offseason with the benefit of hindsight? For example, would you still choose to sign CJGJ over Patrick Queen, knowing they drafted 2 DBs early? This is from Eagle Outsider.
Yeah, that question kind of stood out to me too. I guess it's kind of a matter of, you don't know how the draft is going to go.
Yep.
Like the Eagles, Howie talks about, we plan for every scenario, the worst scenarios, but like even if the draft board fell the way they wanted, they didn't know in March that they were going to be able to get Quinion Mitchell at 22, right? So, I mean, personally, I would like a little more stability at the linebacker position. I would like one guy that I am confident in. I like the upside of the 2 premium corners, right? The chance that they can be the new Lido and Sheldon. But for this year's team, yes, I would rather have a linebacker that I trust a little bit more. But I understand why the Eagles, like, it's hard, as good as Howie is at planning, it's hard to know exactly how the draft is going to go when you're making those big free agent decisions.
Sure. So where I would push back on this a bit is the Eagles did not sign an outside corner they had Isaiah Rodgers on the roster waiting for him to be reinstated, but I think they did keep that open for the draft. Patrick Queen's an interesting sliding doors here. So basically what you're saying is that if you know you have the gene, you can play the gene at safety. You're not giving CJ, GJ the money. I still think safety would have been a target in free agency, and I don't think they would have paid Patrick Queen what the Steelers paid him. Now, there are other things you can do in that sliding doors scenario, other ways you can spend it, but I don't think they would have operated free agency differently. Although when I've talked to you about this before, one of the things I would change about the NFL is I would put free agency after the draft.
Draft
now,
first, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way the NBA does it. Now, the kind of pushback, I think, from the players, and I get this, is that that actually hurts veteran players because now veteran players might not get contracts they would have gotten because you drafted the player. But from a roster construction perspective, I think that if you like free agency should be used to fill spots on your roster.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I like the way the NBA does it. Now, the NBA, it's different. You're not necessarily drafting for a need. Right, but if a great center falls, if Donovan Clingan, if a team drafts Donovan Clingan this year, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
You
yeah.
like the Clingan?
Yeah. Then you're not going to sign a center, right? So, or you're not going to sign a starting center, right?
Yeah.
Who blocks him? So, yeah. So I actually prefer it that way, but just the way the NFL calendar is, that does not occur.
But ultimately, like to me, it boils down to the Eagles are not going to invest a ton of money on linebackers. When Devin White is their biggest financial commitment since Nigel Bradham, like they have a clear philosophy about this. It works some years, it bites them other years, but they have not really changed too much there.
As is often the case, we got over 30 questions here. I sent Joey a 15, and we're not going to be able to get to all 15. So I think that just shows we can do a mailbag.
We can do a mailbag
week. Yes. And look, I love Bo. Bo's pushback is that it's like not original thinking. I so strongly believe in mailbags, and
he's an artist,
I love these questions. Yes, exactly. He doesn't like it if it's not his idea. That's he would tell you that too. It's like when at our previous employer, I would give like story suggestions. He's like, "Well, I can't write that now. You suggested it." Joy is laughing because she can see him saying that. Yeah. It's like unless he thinks of it, it's not happening. So we're gonna jump.
I feel like I'm the therapist sometimes when
there's no need
with
for
either one of you. It's good.
So let's. I say that with love. TN says, "Guess Bo needs to do a mailbag as well," and. Thank you. And Khalif says, "You're right, CB. Let's do a mailbag mega episode, 8 hours." Khalif, we're on every single day. We have shows, Khalif, from, so I think training camp begins 12 weeks from now, like 11 and a half at this point. We'll have a show Monday to Friday every day during that span, except, well, we're not on tomorrow because we did 6 shows last week. But otherwise, outside of like Memorial Day and July 4th, like, we're here giving you Eagles content. I promise you there's going to be no shortage of Eagles mailbag shows. We don't need to do 8 hours of mailbags. We can do it maybe cumulatively. We should have a mailbag week in July. But one of the questions I want to get to, this isn't a doom or gloom question, but this is something that I've actually heard from different corners, and that is, does this team have the highest chance of a letdown in Eagles history compared to I'm sorry, Joey, this is number 9. Compared to the Dream Team as an example. The defense was atrocious, and they didn't do much to change it aside from letting their best player go and drafting rookies. The biggest free agent signing was a running back. They lost Kelce and line depth. This is from Cheesiest814, who is considering doomsday scenarios when he's preparing for this mailbag. What do you think? Do you think there's a letdown possibility for the Eagles?
Sure. Always is. I was going back and thinking of the two most disappointing teams in recent years. And when I say disappointing, it's funny because in hindsight, we actually know why those teams were disappointing. And I'm thinking of the 2011 Eagles and the 2015 Eagles. But there was a lot of hype for those teams before the season started.
Yep.
People thought they were going to be good. One of them also involved a high-priced running back signing as well, which was, I think, a big reason for the optimism. So, look, yeah, I think I was trying to think for this team, if they fail, why do they fail? And, there are a lot of things. Like, there's, even smaller things. Like, let's say Dallas Goedert falls off a cliff, right? And that makes your offense a little less dynamic. That's not the number one reason. I think the number one reason would be Jalen does not get them to top 5, whatever status they are. I know they were top 10 last year, but not to the level they need to be. Fangio is not the savior that it seemed like he was going to be. But I just think this team does not have too many holes, right? When I look at the downside for this group, it's like, oh yeah, the linebacker position is pretty weak. Okay, the linebacker position is weak a lot of times, right? And they can win double-digit games. So I don't think it quite has the downside of other years, but I'd be curious why, if they failed, why you think that would happen.
So, yeah, to the point you said before about the year when there's great expectations, I'm going to quote Philadelphia icon Jason Kelce here. And Jason Kelce said this on July 29th, 2022. And I've referenced this a number of times since. He says, in this city, it feels like every year the media thinks we're really good, we end up being shitty. And every year the media thinks we're going to be shitty, we end up being really good. So
science.
as someone who this is not an exaggeration. This is not hyperbole. This is not like a Johnny Tryhard thing. This is just, I'm telling you the truth. I've literally thought about the Eagles every day for the past 13 years because I've covered the team for 13 years, and there's not a day that goes by when I'm not thinking about them. Now there's some days I'm thinking about them more than others, but I preface that as a way of saying I have somewhat of a recall of this period. And the years that have gone bad, and the Eagle people inside this building will tell you this, it's not when the starters underperform. It's when they don't have depth at sufficient areas. So how does this season go bad? Well, if Lane Johnson goes down or Jordan Mailata goes down and you don't have sufficient tackle depth, that is a concern right now. That's why they signed Mekhi Becton. That's why we talked about them drafting a tackle. That will be the first thing. The second thing is that this team won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, right? If Jalen Hurts goes down and you turn to Kenny Pickett, can Kenny Pickett win you games? And that's going to be the other question here. And we're not talking. So obviously, if a quarterback goes down for any team, it lowers. If your franchise quarterback goes down, it lowers your ceiling. That's just the reality of it. You can't count on a Nick Foles type thing. But let's say even if it's not a season-ending injury, let's say it's a 4 to 6 week injury, right? Does Kenny Pickett come in and go 3-3 in that span, or does Kenny Pickett go 1-5 and then you're struggling?
Yeah,
I think that's where it could go wrong.
Well, and it's like you said too. When one position group is a complete disaster, probably because of injury, sometimes because of investment. I see a lot of people in the chat are talking about last year as one of the most disappointing seasons, and yeah, it was disappointing in a kind of different way, you know, where it really all the disappointment came in the last couple months, and ultimately they were playing literally like one of the worst teams in the league at the end of the year. But when I think back to last year, it's the linebackers were terrible, right? They could not get any stops on defense. Throwing over the middle of the field was very easy against them. I think it's like you said too. If Lane Johnson goes down, the offensive line, right? Is the depth what it has been in past years, right? Vaitai is the left tackle for the Super Bowl team. I don't know. They did not draft their offensive tackle of the future. That's the one thing they did not do. So hopefully Becton is good. But yeah, like when I think of those disappointing years, I think of like Demetrius Bell.
I remember that well, 2012. Yep.
Well, and this team has
Jamon Brown. Remember Jamon Brown in 2020?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and when this team is bad, it's usually the rare year that the offensive line is not dominant. It's average, or it has a couple real problem spots. So I would think that's probably a good way to put it, right? They need to stay healthy there.
And they lost 3 offensive linemen from last year, including the best center in Eagles history. Number 7 here, why is Howie seemingly better at managing the cap than anyone else in the NFL? What do the Eagles do that other teams won't or can't? This is from Hunsonator. Excuse me. So I'll jump in here. And we talked about this on a previous show. And I talked about Jeffrey Lurie and the way the Eagles structure contracts. And this is the way the Eagles manage the cap is they're not a pay-as-you-go team. And what I mean by that is a pay-as-you-go team, typically your cap hit is around what you're getting paid that year, right? It's mostly your base, your base salary plus a little bonus money, or I shouldn't say more, plus bonus money, but it's structured so that there's not these enormous cap hits one year relative to another year. The Eagles don't view cap management that way. The Eagles keep the cap numbers low early on. They pay bonus money. Bonus money is spread out over the life of the contract from cap purposes. So if AJ Brown gets $50 million signing bonus today, I forget what the exact signing bonus was, right? He would get that money today in theory, or it's guaranteed. But that's spread over the life of the deal. And then the Eagles had voidable years, so it's spread even farther there. So the logic the Eagles see here is that the cap's going up, right? So it's basically if you're buying a car, right, or then are you going to pay all the cash up front, right, or are you going to get payments over the life of the deal? And in this case, you're not even paying interest, right? So it's kind of like an interest-free way of paying it. Now the downside to the strategy is when you move on from the player, then that cap hit comes at one time, like Carson Wentz. So sometimes you just suck it up and you take it there. But if you make enough good bets, you're spreading it. When you're moving on from the player, and you've kind of prepared for that. So as Howie would probably look at it, I keep using these kind of real life examples. It's like having a credit card bill. Like at some point, you need to pay your credit card. So you spend with the understanding that you have to pay that bill at some point, but you're still able to spend maybe money that other people aren't because you've kind of planned your finances around when that bill is due. So that's the way they do it. And the key part of that is Jeffrey Lurie being willing to pay cash up front.
That's been maybe my biggest takeaway of this offseason as somebody who doesn't understand everything about the NFL salary cap, and really not a lot. I only have so much bandwidth. Like the NBA salary cap is confusing enough. But one of the big takeaways, which has been explained by you, but also a bunch of people on Twitter, is that it's just that Jeffrey Lurie is willing to pay the money up front is such an advantage if you do make those right bets on Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts and players like that. Let me ask you a question. Do you know of any other owners who also do that sort of strategy with their GM?
I mean, there are other owners that are, aggressive in spending. I think like the Falcons are a team that's aggressive in spending, but in terms of cap management, I don't have that answer for you right now. That's actually a good one. I will go back and see what teams are most comparable. I think Cleveland is comparable there, which Andrew Berry came from, or he spent a year with the Eagles, so he kind of has an understanding there. But I will look that up in terms of that cash spending. The last two questions.
Dallas is not doing that.
Dallas is not doing that, no.
Which is crazy.
No, yeah. And they kind of wait too long to pay for players sometimes too, as you're seeing now. We're kind of tight against time here, so two fun questions here. Let's do one for me and one for you. Number 14, this one will be for me. Pecknecks migrate, writing columns, post-game pods, doing midweek radio spots.
Oh, I was waiting
This is
for
from
one.
Jordan Gillis. Look, post-game pods aren't the same for me now as they once were, because I'm not doing these marathon sessions after writing. We have this amazing post-game show now. It's going to get even better next season and the year after that and the year after that as we continue to figure out what's best for the audience. And I kind of chime in for 15 minutes from the game as opposed to doing the 3 a.m. show with Bo. But I understand the spirit of the question. So the spirit of the question here is I'll peck the post-game pod, the post-game show. I don't want to do that every night, but it's part of the job. The NFL only has 17 games, right? Soon to be 18, I imagine. Then you have the playoffs and the preseason. So you're looking at like 20 to 25 times a year when this is happening. I mean, look, no one should cry, should cry for the reporter who has to, jump on a post-game pod at 3 a.m. 20 to 25 times a year, right? I will always nest the writing. I think that writing is a foundation. I'm kind of getting on a soapbox here, but if I get up here and talk every day with this job, right? But what's the distinguishing, like why should someone listen? Well, it should be because you're reporting, you're informed, you're not just kind of giving just whatever's kind of on the seat of your pants type opinion. Like there's some meat and heft behind it, and that comes from writing. And I think I write every single day, even if it's not appearing. Like I'm working on writing because I think it's a muscle that atrophies if you don't use it. And then migrating the midweek radio spots.
This has to hurt you a little bit, though.
What's that?
To migrate the midweek radio spots.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not like the foundational part of the, I'm not getting, that's kind of what I do for maybe fun or visibility or to promote the PHLY brand or the other places where I've worked in the past. But it's not the core part of the job, right? So, the work is the work. You have to know what you're getting paid for. And, so I would migrate that, but I certainly don't want to. I enjoy doing that. So then number 15, and this is for you. And look, kill maximum or clean maximum. Come on, man. We don't need negative vibes here. But do you think the Sixers' inevitable heartbreak comes in Game 6 or Game 7? So you can answer that, or you can tell me why the inevitable heartbreak won't come in Game 6 or Game 7. But I'm deferring. I know there's ample time to talk about this on the PHLY Sixers show, but for the PHLY Eagles audience, let's give this to us.
I think it's Game 7.
All right.
It's been an amazing series, though.
Yes.
It really is. Like every game is... Like tonight's game is going to be 92-92 with 3 minutes left, and we'll see what happens after it's over. But it's something I've been saying on the Sixers show where it's just like the neutral NBA fans, the national writers are like, this is amazing. Like
yes.
the people who don't care about the results are like, this is great. Like this is like old school Eastern Conference basketball. This is fun. I think it's probably pretty similar to the Eagles Super Bowls, the last two that they've played. To high-scoring, excellent games. Like, if you're just at a Super Bowl party watching the game, you're like, this is fantastic. But if you actually care about it, it's torture, right?
Yes. I hear you there. And I acknowledge all of this. And the Knicks, are a team that I appreciate. They play so hard, right? They're so tough. That said, this isn't like my Shady Rays optimistic view of the week here or something like that.
Very good.
Like this is me speaking as someone who loves basketball, who's watched basketball my entire life. Like if you just look at this, the Sixers are leading in point differential in this series, okay? They have two of the best three guys on the court in this series.
The Knicks might have the five next best guys.
Yeah, but I think you win with stars, right?
Sure.
The Knicks are down to 7 guys right now, right? So
the Sixers.
Yeah, no, I get that. These games have been close. I can see a pathway. Look, the Sixers. I say this all the time with 7-game series, and it's like the most obvious thing. Win the night, and it's one game. Win the night, it's one game. Now it's one game on the road. Last year was one game on the road in Boston, and they got the crap kicked out of them, right?
They did.
But it's one game on the road. Now you can say the Eagles are going to be, or the Sixers will run out of gas, but I don't know, man. I mean, I think
I just think it's two 50-50 games, and unfortunately, they have to win both of them.
True. I've just seen so many times in sports when the team that's about to lose it I brought up on the other show, Dave Roberts is stolen base in the 2004 Red Sox series. Or I think about Ray Allen hitting the corner 3 against the Spurs. Like
Precisionless basketball.
There you go. Sometimes when you're on the brink, you're on the brink and you get that life, it rejuvenates you. And it like destroys the other team, right? The Knicks were, 14 seconds away from moving on to having the Pacers or the beat-up Bucks in the next series, and now they have to go down to Philly. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to be like Johnny Optimist here. I'm just saying, like you said, 2 50-50 games.
Don't be optimist.
And, if you flip a coin twice, it's not always going to be heads and tails, right? It might be heads twice.
I'm with you.
Might be tails twice.
I'm with you. I just think it's hard to win 3 toss-up games. And look, the other thing too is like they have to find a way to play Joel 38 minutes instead of 45 minutes.
Sure.
It's like
I'm with you there.
It's absolutely crazy that they keep having to play him for these entire second halves. And I will say, I love Tyrese Maxey, and he was the reason they won that game the other night down the stretch. He bailed out Joel. But like, can you just play good at the beginning of the second quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter? Can you have the 2 3-pointers during that stretch? Because guess what? The big guy will be better because they'll be able to sit him. So
while you're here,
it's gonna be fun.
Let's let the PHLY Eagles audience know what's coming up on the PHLY Sixers show.
Yeah, we have a post-game pod tonight. We actually had the watch along the other night, which was a good night for it because you got to see me freaking out about Maxey's shot while Devon is complaining about him missing free throws beforehand. Devon, come on, man. Like, that was an amazing shot. He just made a 34-footer to save the season. But that's Devon's nature. We have a pod. It'll be at like 2 a.m. tonight whenever the game ends. So, either tune in live or get it tomorrow. It'll be in your podcast feed.
I will be tuning in live tonight. Looking forward to that. For our loyal audience here at the PHLY Eagles show, we will not be on at noon tomorrow. We gave you 15 hours of draft content last weekend. We did 6 shows. And so Friday is a day when we are not on the air, but I will be at the NovaCare Complex tomorrow, the Eagles facility, for their rookie minicamp. Looking forward to speaking to Nick Sirianni, looking forward to speaking to the rookies, and you can check out allphly.com for something from there, and you can check out our YouTube page and our social for a video report from the rookie minicamp, and we will be back on Monday at noon. It won't be a mailbag, but we'll be back. Looking forward to that. Rich, I appreciate you joining us today. As always, Julia, every day gets a given, does an amazing job. And until then, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Sixers content. Maybe there will be 2 shows or 2 post-game shows coming up. We'll see. Until then, Bo will say we love you. I will say we'll do better next time. Thank you for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.